Our goal is just, how do we make this an attraction that is going to last you the 5 years that you want or more for your investment?
Hi, I'm Russ, and this is the Memory Makers Podcast, the show that helps you create amazing customer experiences and make more memories. Memory Makers Podcast. Little Bruno.
I like it.
Little Bruno, never hurt anybody.
I see where you're going there. Picking up what you're putting down.
That's right. That's what, bringing the noise, bringing the funk with a horn section.
Always.
I can never be mad at it.
He is a phenomenal performer. Phenomenal performer.
So you've seen him live.
I have. I've seen him live twice.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Twice. And now he's getting ready to go on tour again, so I'm all here for it.
Well, I'm going to have to go and get tickets for that one then for sure.
You'd appreciate it.
Okay.
You would appreciate it.
Well, for those of you listening, you can see or hear rather that we are joined by none other than Mr. Armando Lanuti. Thank you for joining us, my brother.
I appreciate the invite, as always.
Well, I wanted today's episode to focus on the kind of changing landscape that we've seen with things like virtual and mixed reality, where we see it now and the improvements that it's been making as far as, hey, what was VR 9 years ago is not necessarily the same thing as what we're seeing today. The technology's improved. How we're crafting experiences out of it has improved.
Yep.
Guests' fluency with it is getting better. And so I wanted to pick at your brain a little bit and get some of your insights of not only what you're seeing with some cool new things, whether it's stuff at like the Consumer Electronics Show or even just the conversations that you've had with other tech developers and things. And then also talk about, hey, what are some of these myths or stumbling points that we can either anticipate and engineer out of the problem and things like that. So that's what we're going to get into.
Let's do it.
And I think that the reason why I wanted to dive into this is just in my opinion, at least, it doesn't feel like we're in the stage of, hey, these are novelties when, and so you get some cool points factors for these. What we're really seeing now is the more and more that guests are looking for true experiences out of and something unique and different that they can't get at home, whether it's laser tag, hey, this is larger than life, you're physically moving through it, great, you can't get that anywhere else. But now we're seeing different types of gameplay and the way that the tech is being used where it's creating true experiences, and it's not just okay, well, we happen to be playing VR. We're playing an arcade game that happens to have a VR headset on it. Like we're doing something that's new and different with it. And I also wanted to talk about just, okay, well, these are investments and real decisions that then business owners have to then think about and make sure that their team is set up for success in order to take something like that and run with it. So with Creative Works adopting these VR and MR attractions or virtual and mixed reality attractions over the last better part of a decade, it's almost 10 years now. What were some of your initial thoughts on it then, like back in 2017 when we first really started getting serious about it? And how has that evolved based on what we're doing now?
Yeah. So look, I've always been a nerd, right? I like technology. I like things that go beep and boop, so to speak. And so we've always had an interest. Yeah. And if you just look over, even going prior to that, the offerings from a Disney, Universal, some of the bigger players in the entertainment world, they started to use technology in pretty amazing ways. And it was just always out of reach for the most part for the everyday venue. Hit, little pieces here and there that would sometimes pop up, but nothing that had really ever made sense, had an ROI, et cetera. I think that really started to change in that 2016, 2017 timeframe, and we started to look at the different things that were out there. And we wanted something that could provide that digital experience. And the beauty of that digital experience is you get to, disobey the laws of physics, right? Like, you're not beholden to having to worry about the things that are just in the physical realm. You can do anything, right? And that is part of the magic of digital, is that I can change environments, I can change characters. And when you start to get into virtual reality and augmented reality, you could completely change how you looked. You could completely change what you were interacting with and how you felt in those environments. And that was super powerful. And I think that was, the relationship with Hollowgate at the time, it was almost like lightning in a bottle, right? That, I don't think had ever been created prior to that and would be created after. They were phenomenal in creating a great package. We worked with them closely to try and then make the shift to, trying to cater to operations, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably one of the biggest things about any virtual or augmented attraction is that how do I now fit it into the actual flow of my business? And, we've had people over the years that have come to us and they're like, hey, we've got this idea and we've got this really cool experience. Like I had a great meeting with one just a couple of weeks back, and it is a really cool experience. It's something that I enjoyed personally. I have no idea how to make that into something, however, that works for an operator.
Right.
Right. And those are two fundamentally different components that have to come together when you're looking at something. Right. And so when, we worked with coming out with Hologate, for example, it was like, how do we make this a short experience? How do we make this something that the average 17-year-old is able to operate and manage and do? Because that's who's in our venues, right? The frontline employees are typically 17 to 25.
Yep.
They have a certain amount of knowledge, a certain amount of attention span, a certain amount of patience. And so you've got to try and break it down into those experiences. In virtual reality 10 years ago was, in its nascent form as far as the general public goes, right? Like most people had not experienced it. Even today, I would, bet 50% or less people have ever actually experienced virtual reality.
Yeah.
Still today.
Yeah.
Right? A decade later, even though we've done millions and millions of plays across the various partners that we've worked with over that time.
Right.
And so there's still, I think, a massive opportunity out there. And so what we saw is this massive surge, right? You have players that are coming to with new hardware and all those kind of components that started to go into the home space too, right? And that has ebbed and flowed, right? Some have come, some have gone, some are reinvesting, some have pivoted back. It's a confusing space at times to try and track where everybody's at. But I think that's one of the things that we had to learn that lesson early on is a lot of the early VR, whether it was, products that we worked with, any of the others that were out there, things that were even still at some of the big boy, venues like theme parks and museums and exhibits, etc. A lot of them were forced in the early days to utilize hardware that was designed for a consumer in a commercial environment.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the biggest hurdles for that industry, and the perception that it's had to fight, for a long time since is, it's one thing if like I care for my device and how I take care of it, and I'm going to treat it in a certain way because I spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for that piece of equipment. If it's something I'm wearing for 5 minutes, I just treat it differently.
Right.
I don't have a connection to it.
Right.
And so that works when it's somebody's personal device, and the construction techniques that you have to have for that at that point are different than, hey, I'm trying to run thousands of people here, through this every month, and I need to withstand that wear and tear. It's got to be able to be cleaned and wiped down and taken care of and maintained. And, I think the hardest part for almost any VR attraction for a long time was also just cable wear and tear. Right. Because people would twist and turn, and every time that happens, you get kinks in a cable, and eventually that cable breaks, inside of the sheath. You don't even know, but you start having issues, ghosts in the system. And a lot of times it's just dealt with stuff like that, where we finally have started to see players come to it with commercial equipment. And I think that has made a massive difference. HTC started to lead that charge. We've seen that now evolve with Pico, PCVR, a lot of different players are starting to come with hardware that's now designed for our market.
Yeah.
But some people are now wary of experiences that they've had in the past.
Sure.
So understanding that there's a difference between a product that was delivered 4, 5, 10 years ago and a product that's delivered today, as far as the hardware reliability, stability, ease of use, the programming behind it, and all those kind of things.
Well, and I think that especially as it's gotten more prevalent, like they have more developers that they're thinking about it from that mindset. And you even look at something like, hey, if we have something like limitless VR, right?
Yeah.
Where great. We were able to get away from having a tethered experience, and now you can actually move through and do something that's more free roam VR.
Something as little as that makes a massive difference in who can play it, who can experience it, right? You know, the original systems where you have one of two scenarios when everything had to be wired to a computer. You either put them in a scenario where they stood in one place and they had a leash, for lack of a better term, you know, preventing their movement, or you had to strap a computer to their back. And that's not great either, because we just talked about, hey, how do people treat something in a home environment versus a computer or a commercial environment? And somebody strapping a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 piece of equipment to their back, you've got wear and tear issues.
Yeah.
You've got heat issues, right? For anybody that remembers playing some of those earlier systems where you had to put a backpack on, like, you came out hot because you have a high-end computer operating on your back, right? Like, you were coming out like you were in a sauna, you know, so to speak, before you even dealt with your heightened, you know, adrenaline from being in an awesome experience. You were warm just to begin with. And then you had to worry about batteries and charging, all that kind of stuff. I think that's the biggest shift that as we went down the limitless VR path of like, how do I get a cool game onto a headset that I don't have to be tethered to a computer and I have the ability to move freely? And I think that there's a lot of people that have done that type of a concept well. What we really wanted to do, and one of my favorite experiences, was how do I mix the real and the physical, because I think that's where you really start to get some magic that happens, right? My one of my earlier experiences with VR in a commercial environment was with the Void, right? And they're no longer here for all sorts of things that don't have really anything to do with VR or the business model. But the ability for you to reach out in the virtual world and touch something that's in the physical world and have those things match takes it to a whole nother level. And right. And we wanted to bring a bit of that in with Limitless, where, you know, our background was laser tag. We know that laser tag is a great experience. It's a great game. It's been around for 45 years at this point. And it is one of those things that just builds on what every first person, you know, video game shooter, Fortnite, Apex, Overwatch, you know, the new High Guard that's out, all the things that are out there that have millions upon millions of people playing. And it's not just kids anymore, right? Like, the average gamer is 40 plus years old, because that's the generation that we grew up in. And now our kids are growing up in it, and we're playing together, and we're doing all those things, creating environments that they're already used to having. But now, where instead of sitting on a couch or sitting behind a computer, I can physically move through them, is awesome. Yeah. Right? It's absolutely awesome.
Well, and I think having things that are actually translating to the commercial use, like you talked about, having features and just the continue. I mean, it's like flat screen TVs. When they first came out, way more expensive. They couldn't do as much, and now you can get a 65-inch TV with
for a couple $100
smart TV for a couple $100 and all of that. So the economies of scale, but also just the developmental resources from the Big Mac Daddy guys and all of that, I think is really starting to hit this next launching point, which I'm super jazzed about.
Well, it's just technology changes quickly. And I think that that's actually, you know, that point is one of the things that was also during the early years a little bit harder, is that hardware was changing so quickly because it was so new that all of a sudden there was the new, the next, the best. And that created, again, issues that wouldn't be found in a home use environment of, oh, well, the difference between my headset and their headset, a version apart, no big deal. But now in a commercial environment where, you know, an operator is making an investment for something that they want to capitalize over 4, 5, 6 years, you've got to have hardware that's going to last that long. Yeah. That you can get support for, that you can get, you know, repaired, that you know that the platform is going to be there. And I think that was actually a mistake that some of the early manufacturers made on the actual hardware side of things, is that they'd end a life of product 18 months after introducing it. Yeah. And then you were hoping that you could find a way to make it backwards compatible as a manufacturer supplier on the attraction side, like what we did. And we stood by it. There were times where we had to completely just pay to upgrade somebody, because that's our relationship. That's the thing that Creative Works brings to the table in a scenario like that, is that security that we're not just going to fold overnight, you know. And unfortunately that happened to some people where they bought product and that company is just no longer here. And we've even seen that just in this last year. Some players are just leaving the market because they've not been able to figure out a viable business model that works for them.
Do you think that some of that comes from just as developers, like when we're coming up with an attraction, we kind of start to look at it of, okay, it either needs to slot into arcade ecosystem friendly, or it needs to be this mini attraction style. And there are different things that need to kind of come with that, and each have their own, points of entry or requirements and stuff that are going to make that a better experience depending on which one you go with. It's not just, hey, you need to make sure that you've got somebody that can turn on a computer and be able to do and reset something. It's the experience itself has to be something of, for example, early in the limitless development thing, we were like, okay, we want user accounts and we want people to be able to track their stacks and or stats and all of that. Still have that, but it's an underutilized piece just because not as many people have, to your point, played VR still. Like there's still a lot of green players out there in the market for them to then, oh, okay, cool, I can do this just like I do the rest of it. When you're thinking through, okay, these are either changes to an existing system or vetting something that's new, especially I feel like VR in particular versus something like mixed reality definitely lends itself more to that mini attraction type of operation, where we're seeing things like the Valo Motion and, whether it's Valo Arena or Valo Climb or Valo Jump, those, because you're not having the wearable tech, it's a lower point of entry where like younger kiddos can play it. Moms aren't going to be as self-conscious about it because they don't, they can't see what other people are doing around them or what have you. And so it's also looking at, how is the technology being used, in a mixed versus a virtual reality type of an experience? And then, even looking at those bits and bobs. When you look at different vendors that have come and gone, they may have been like a garage startup, but they had some really good, kind of pieces. Do you think that it was just hey, was it the experience or the technology, or was it just their inexperience within our industry and trying to create something, right? Because I look at something like the Oculus and it's, okay, great. Like I can do that at home and I can box and everything else. And in the early days when you'd go to like a Scene 75 and they just had 5 or 6 bays of VR headsets that were essentially doing like VR tanning salons that were going into that. And so now it's, I feel like there's that piece of, okay, well, we still, like clients that have Limitless for like Nemacolin Resorts, for example, like they absolutely crush it on this, but they're looking at how are they marketing and bundling it within the experience? How is the staff, staying continually up to speed even through changeover? And so a lot of that can come down to where, hey, the product can be really good and impactful for the guest experience, but we as operators also need to be mindful of how are we keeping the edge sharp. And
I think that there's a couple different things there. Like, when you're talking about, how 2 different venues might even operate, how they market and whatnot, it's no different than any other industry. There's been plenty of good restaurants that served good food, that had good service, but that failed, right? There's also plenty that, you're like, how are you still around? Because those things don't, like, sometimes it's how are they capitalized? How do they operate? How is their marketing? Is, what were the demographics in the venue that they went into, right? Like all of those things across the board become part of the equation. So it's really hard to ever pinpoint like one thing typically why a concept, wins or loses or succeeds or fails, depending on how you want to, look at it. I think when you ask, how, when we see some of these people that have maybe come and gone, sometimes it's the hardware that they chose didn't work. Sometimes it's they were undercapitalized to be able to account for it. I think that's one of the things that's been a little bit different for our approach, for example, is our industry, people like to own the product that they have, right? That gives you as an operator ultimate flexibility in how do I package? How do I market? When do I discount? Do I have different pricing on weekdays versus weekends? When I'm creating a group event, a group package that's going to include multiple attractions, food, and I'm trying to allocate that out, I have just the ultimate amount of flexibility to do that when I own the attraction and it's mine and I can do whatever I want with it. Unfortunately, a lot of the systems that were out there, especially in the early days, charge pretty sizable subscription fees, right? Like, sometimes as much as 10 or more % of what the attraction cost every year that you're having to reinvest to get content out of it. That's an outsized ratio for an operator.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's just too much. It's got to be either nothing in an ideal world, right? For every operator that's like, hey, I'd like to buy it and own it. Or if you do need to have some support, that needs to be in the single digit percentages, low single digits of that helps you account for those things.
Sure.
But if your business model is designed around, I need that 10% to survive, that's where I think some of them failed, right? Because if they aren't able to get content out for that, or if that's what they need to just pay the bills every week, so to speak, then they're not able to generate that additional content that became promised, right? And I think that that's where we saw quite a few of them, unfortunately just not succeed because of business models that I think were just fundamentally flawed, out of the gate. And then you saw some that started to come out with, oh, well, we'll just do a rev share. We'll give you all the hardware for free, but then we'll sign you up for a subscription. Well, we talked about some of the hardware cycles that go up. That's a very dangerous proposition for a business. And I think that that's why we saw, I think from 2017 to 2022, a lot of them not survive, right? And then you have some stalwarts that, have been able to succeed. Like, I think Zero Latency's got a great product. They have a great business model. They put out really good content. The experience is very good. They do have some of those fees involved, but they're utilizing it in the right way, and they were capitalized to be able to get past that bubble, right, in that cycle. And I think that they've done an amazing job. I think that's where, something like Limitless for Creative Works has been so unique. We don't need ongoing subscription fees to keep the doors open, right? We have a breadth of products, a breadth of offerings. We've priced it in a point where the development cycle is built into the process. So that's why we can keep a base product that's competitive price-wise, and we're not saying, hey, you need to give us 10 grand a year, every year. That math doesn't math. Instead, the way the model will work for us is, as we do additional content, we're going to choose based on where we're at and what that content type is. Hey, here you go. Just like we just got done doing. Here's a bunch of game skins. Yeah. Everybody got it. Here's bots. Everybody got it. Here's a new level. Everybody's getting it. And we're just providing it. We're building the ecosystem to make sure that the product has the legs for you to get your 4, 5, 6, 7 year amortization of that investment that you made.
Yeah.
We want you to have that. At some point, we will add content that we might charge for, but that's my job to make sure that content is good enough that you see the value, both from what we've already provided at no cost to you,
right,
because of your initial purchase and your initial, trust in us, and the quality of what it is that we're providing, that value exchange makes sense, right? And then it makes sense from an ROI standpoint. And as our base of operations grows from operators that have Limitless, it just makes it that much easier, because I don't need to charge as much, because I can spread the development costs. And our goal is just, how do we make this an attraction that is going to last you the 5 years that you want or more for your investment?
Yeah. When you look at some of the different operational models that are out there, and I know, in the past when we talk with, other consultants and things like Kevin Williams and Bob Cooney and these guys that are looking at the cutting edge stuff or hyper, niche kind of operations, there's still really cool stuff that they do that I think translates into a traditional, what I would call a traditional, although we've got acronyms for everything these days, but out of home entertainment type of a venue. And I think that it's one where it can seem maybe complicated, but ultimately at its core, it's not necessarily. Like, we talk about gamification with training, right? If we're bringing in a new attraction, okay, great. We're going to have the employees all do a tournament, in-house, and kind of just do a little March Madness bracket style kind of a thing. It's good for team building internally. It's good for bragging rights, but it also helps them really understand and be able to advocate for it to the clients that are coming through. Do you see that where have you seen it be an easy lift to do those kinds of things, even for the guests that are coming through? Like, do you have to inherently have a built-in customer base that's hyper-focused on this product, or can it be something that's a little bit more open to the public, so to speak?
It should 100% be open to the public. I mean, that was a lesson we learned early on, right? A lot of the early VR was behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Right? And so first and foremost, make it something that is approachable, that people can see other people having fun at, that they can hear them laughing, giggling, screaming, whatever the case may be. Sometimes you've got like the zombie, piece that gets you scared and jump scare. Sometimes it's just the banter back and forth, integrating the haptic feedback blasters that we have, just so you can hear the clickety clack of the attraction with the music, with the sound, with video that shows what people are seeing. Like, all those things make it a really good experience. And so having it out in the open, getting people to understand that they're not having to buy in for a long chunk of time. I think that's one of the pieces that we've always, looked at, is how do we get people into the attraction and out of the attraction from a throughput standpoint in a cohesive manner that's smooth. It doesn't feel jarring. It feels natural for the guests, for the operators, as much as we can. And that experience in VR only needs to last 2 to 10 minutes.
Right.
But are there cases where it's done very well for longer experiences? 100% there are. We just have a difference in opinion and what I think makes sense. If this is a part of the wider breadth of attractions that I'm doing, where I've got bowling, I've got food and bev, I've got an arcade, I've got laser tag, I've got golf, whatever the case may be, my goal is to get them to experience all those things.
Yeah.
And not just trap them in a room or trap them into an attraction for their entire time there. That's going to limit the excitement that they're going to have.
Right.
The amount of things, the reason that they come to you is because you have a breadth of offerings, and it's going to limit your per cap from an operator standpoint, because if they have a bunch of things that are, get their juices flowing, get them excited and that they want to try, they're more likely to spend and do more things.
Yeah.
Right. Versus if you park them in one spot too long. So I like it as it's a great, like you said, it's really designed for that mini attraction complimentary component. No, very few people are coming to your venue just for one of the things that you're doing.
Right.
They're coming for the overall experience.
Yeah. Well, and it's an interesting thing too. And we even look at, hey, we've got folks that like the idea of doing something like laser tag, but you're in a market like New York where you do not have 3,000 to 4,000 square feet to try to allocate towards something like that. I feel like we've seen Limitless be an awesome piece for something where, hey, we can scratch this itch. You can have this laser tag experience, but not only that, now you can have different maps, different levels, and it feels cooler.
And we can do it in 600 to 1,600 square feet,
right,
and make it a viable attraction, right? That, we have some of our clients that are doing the larger footprint, right? It's 16 players. That is about as small as you'd ever go on a laser tag side of things, right? If I'm building a laser tag arena, you don't really want to get under 20 players very often.
Right.
But sometimes people come to us and they're like, hey, I've only got 1,500 square feet, 1,600 square feet. I don't have the 3,000 square feet that's ideal for a 20-player laser tag. Well, hey, great. We can get you 16, almost that full capacity in half the space.
Well,
right? And that makes it super nice.
Build outs and
correct.
All of
There's
the
no
extra,
general construction. It's an all-encompassing price for under $150,000. Like, that's awesome from that standpoint. Or it's like, hey, I don't need it to be one of my larger anchor high throughput attractions. I need it to be one of those mini attractions that's next to a Valo Arena, that's a part of my bowling, my go-karting, my golf, etc. And maybe I just didn't have laser tag, or we have some clients that have both laser tag and Limitless, and they're both extremely popular in those venues, no issues. But now I've got it and it's only a 20 by 30 space, 6 players, easy, quick throughput. You don't want to really get much smaller than that, or fewer players than that, because the whole point is you want to have fun together with groups. The average group size is 5 people that are attending a venue, right? From that standpoint, the average party size is between 10 and 11 people. So being able to create a scenario where it's like, hey, I can get a party through in two 5-minute sessions from a rotation allows that to still be a functioning part of your party package.
Well, and the other thing that I'm really starting to get more of a sense of is you see a lot more operators that say, hey, we want like our high tech sector, right?
Yep.
Where I need multiple different styles of attractions. And so then you've got some folks that are saying, hey, I want to be known for some of these really cool cutting edge pieces. So I'm going to
they'll put a hyper deck. They'll put some of the smaller footprint VR attractions with the Godzillas, etc. The Rabbids, and all in the area, with the Valo arenas, with the Limitless VRs, right?
Well, and then it's okay if I've got a 6-player Limitless or an 8-player Limitless, and I've got a 6-player Valo arena. Great, I can have those two things side by side. And now I've got a mixed reality and a virtual reality. Like there's now enough diversity, I think, in the experiences that are out there where you can have 2-person experiences, 8-person experiences, 4-person experiences. And now you're doing the same thing within that. Okay, if we want to be known as like the super cool thing, you know, even beyond, and we're not necessarily thinking about bowling, great. I can create a whole
It's like
node.
a hub.
Yeah. And then from the operations standpoint, what I really got excited was like nothing is truly unstaffed. And even something is as rock solid as Valo Arena, right? Like you can leave that unattended 90% of the time, but on a busy Saturday morning, you're going to want somebody there just to keep people from dilly-dallying in line. So now if I've got that ecosystem and I've got that blend of different approaches, I can still have some flex floating staff that can move in and out across multiple attractions like that to make sure for those first-time players that are new to it, that are blown away by what they see, helps them kind of enter the fray, I think, a little better.
You can only, as an operator, make as much money as your capacity and your throughput at your busiest times, right? It doesn't matter what a Tuesday afternoon is for most people. It's how can I make sure that I am able to be as efficient as possible from Friday until Sunday? Because 70% of my business is going to happen in those 3 days, if not more. Right. And so, you know, those are the days where you are going to staff up in certain attractions to maximize your throughput, maximize your guest experience, right? So they're not getting frustrated, you know, about whatever their attraction is, whether it's, you know, mixed reality, virtual reality, bowling, whatever. Again, I love to sometimes talk about other industries because it's easy to relate. Sometimes we get nose blind to our own business that we're in sometimes as an operator. And we, you know, oh, well, we don't have that problem or we don't do that thing, but we're the first person to notice that problem when we go out to a restaurant, right? Or some other venue. And so again, that restaurant on a Friday night has more hosts or hostesses, more staff, more people bussing tables to turn those tables over, make sure that they have more servers to maximize that revenue. And you're going to treat that differently than a Tuesday night, right? Or you're going to treat dinner rushes different than 2:00 in the afternoon. That same mindset is how you should be looking at your attractions that you're running. Is even if something can be unmanned, is that the best way to operate that attraction to maximize your revenue at the end of the day, right? Like we've seen just, I feel like in culture, like we want to be self-service as much as possible, but we are also willing to pay for a premium experience and for that premium service. And it's easier to have a higher price point to get people to have more enjoyment, to have somebody that can help navigate in the moment when something doesn't go exactly buttery smooth, when you have a staff member involved and they are trained properly to be able to walk that guest through the experience or walk them around it if there is an issue, if they need to.
Yeah. So for people that are looking at, hey, we you know, maybe had some hesitations just based on the water cooler talk that we've seen over the, you know, in the early stages of this new launch of VR and mixed reality and everything else. Are there any kind of decision criteria, questions, or metrics that you would say, like, hey, if I was in that position and I was opening up a center, like, here's 2 or 3 things that I would make sure that I'm thinking about or asking pointed questions around in order to make sure that I can do further due diligence beyond and see it in the wild, obviously, too. But, you know, what are some of those that come to mind?
I think, you know, first of all, no different than if, again, relating it to other things, I'm going to go buy a vehicle, right? Or something else that's a meaningful purchase in my life. Do I trust the company that I'm purchasing it from? Do they have a history of being in business in the first place, supporting the products that are out there on the market,
right?
Taking care of clients, those kind of things, asking questions so that you have a true way of budgeting. Like what is the actual cost of ownership of this attraction? What are my expectations, you know, throughout the first year? And then after that honeymoon, you know, period is over, you know, year 2, year 3, year 4, because this is a, you know, capital investment for my business that I'm trying to understand. What are their plans for the future, right? When you're dealing with a product that has a digital component, right? The whole point of that digital component is how do I keep it fresh, new, and exciting? How do I get more legs out of it because I'm not having to deal with the physical, instruments that I might in another attraction. So what are their plans for that roadmap? How are they treating that? How much does it cost to add or implement? I think, who's supporting it? Like, when something goes wrong, nothing breaks at 2:00 on a Monday, right? So who are you able to call? When are you able to call them? And this is going to sound silly, right? Because even in America, we have, 3 time zones, but who's supporting it, right? Is it somebody that's going to be able to pick up the phone, or are you getting, thrown to an answering service or whatever the case may be?
Right.
And that's unfortunately the case in some of those scenarios.
Yeah. Looking out, and we put our crystal ball on the table,
Okay.
and we say, hey, over the next 3 to 5 years, we continue to expect to see new advancements or new tweaks or new improvements or new features that, all of it that can kind of come out there. Is there anything that gets you just more excited about or that you're looking forward to being able to implement into some of these experiences? So obviously we've talked about, hey, the headsets are made better and differently than they were.
Yep.
Just the refresh rates and the quality of the content,
Yep.
all of that stuff is there. Like, one of the things that I'm most excited about is just we're doing more work to just be able to internally develop more content
Yep.
like that, because in the early days you were so beholden to some outside studio
Yeah.
that was 2 people that could kind of do that. And so I think that if I were to put that crystal ball piece, I think that the ability to create new and niche content is going to rapidly bloom across the
Yes.
board, because you have so many more people who are attuned to what this is and how they can actually start to make it.
Well, I think that a couple of things that I, as I'm forecasting out in the future, I think one is exactly that. Like, for us in particular, we're bringing some development in-house, whether that's new talent, whether that is new partnerships, whether that is new tools that are just now readily available for us that, 5, 8, 10 years ago were not. The advent of some of the tools for programming, modeling, et cetera, that are now available with AI and then will only continue to get better,
Yeah.
are tools that don't replace the work, but they allow the work to be sped up. And so a person that is knowledgeable about utilizing those tools can put out far more, work product than they could in the past, or better work product than they could in the past, just because those tools are now available to them. And I think that, there's a couple of mindsets out there, and I believe that both can be true, right? A lot of people, just in the world right now, make it a this or, right? Versus it can be a this and.
Yeah.
And so I think there will be a continued proliferation of augmented reality type products that will have, headsets or glasses that you're still seeing the real world out there, and it's augmenting, overlaying those kind of things. I think there's going to be certainly a place for that. The piece that still never solves is it can never completely transport you somewhere else.
Right.
Right. So there will also, for the end, always be a place for something that can completely transport you somewhere else. Now, that is going to still only be at the moment, if I'm doing it on an individual, a virtual reality headset. I think
Right.
what we're going to continue to see from those kind of headsets are lighter weight, better balance, better ventilation. And look, from the beginning of us ever getting into it, we were never the people that wanted, and we intentionally never sold, well, this has this refresh rate, this has this many frames, this has like, it's how does it look, how does it feel?
Right.
Because that's how the lay person is I'm going to play this one.
Yep.
And I'm going to play that one. Which one felt better?
Yeah.
That's what's most important, not worrying about those other elements, where tech speak is overtaking just, is this a fun experience or
Right.
not, right? And did I enjoy myself? Did I have fun? Did I come out laughing with my friends? And I think that we're going to see continued growth, and we've seen a couple new headsets, be released over the last, year or more, and companies that they're staying whole hog in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they are well capitalized. They're not going anywhere. They're not pivoting. They will continue to reinvest, and being on those platforms will allow us to continue to grow, for the future from that standpoint. And we will just continue to see a better overall experience, from that standpoint.
I love it. So when you were talking about more of that kind of augmented reality where you can have a glass or some sort of wearable tech, you're still seeing the physical
Yeah.
world. Like, Pokemon Go mini golf, man. I think that's our next.
Look, 100%. And there are a lot of options out there for those kind of things. But that's also one of those elements where you've just got to be careful. You know, a year ago, there was a lot of hype in the Snap spectacles. So Snapchat created these cool spectacles, and it was a cool experience. I didn't get to see them at AWE. I ended up getting to see them a little bit later on, but now they are spinning that off. Even a company like that, because that wasn't their primary focus, right? Versus working with a hardware company, you know, and Meta has dabbled in and out through acquisition. They wanted the metaverse. You know, one day they're in, one day they're out. Right now they're out again, right? And then they'll be back in another 3 weeks, and they'll just add an AI tab asterisk to it, and now it's, you know, worth more somehow. Those kind of things happen all the time. But, you know, I think that's one of the things that we focused on is trying not to get caught up in the tech chase, but looking for the products that are going to be supported from a foundational standpoint. Because again, when you're making that investment, you're making it for a capital reason that has to pan out. It has to pay for itself, and that has to support itself for several years. And so that's always super important to us when we're creating those partnerships.
I love it. Before I let you go,
sure,
I want to check with you on any recent podcasts or audiobooks or new quotes, what entrepreneurial kind of vitamins.
Entrepreneurial vitamins. I like that.
That have entered your world recently.
I like that. You know, on the entrepreneurial side, you know, I've been listening to a little bit of Ramit. I like Alex Hormozi. You know, there's elements of him that don't make sense for me, but there's also some really amazing golden nuggets that he drops every now and then. And ironically, I really like his wife, Layla, has a lot of amazing content that she puts out as well. So I think the two of them do a really good job, and you know, there's some good takeaways there that can be applied to most other businesses, if done appropriately. Looking at the personal side, maybe on the non-business entrepreneurial side, I did get sucked into the Brandon Sanderson Cosmere universe a little bit back. I am in Wind and Truth, and it is awesome, right? So and good. It is such a good world. It's a great way to you know, escape reality when you're just stuck in traffic driving to the office, or my favorite is it's one of the things I do in the mornings on the treadmill, right? Like the time passes by really quickly from that standpoint.
Yeah, definitely. You don't mind the incline on the treadmill as much. Yeah, when you got a little bit of that.
Yeah, there's some action going and some escapism. It's awesome. It's awesome. And it's Shalon's fault.
We go. We got sucked into this both, and it's just because I love just our band of misfit toys and all of it that we have together. But like, we started Brandon Sanderson, like the Cosmere tabletop game. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons or done any of those kind of dice games. So I am like learning with our guys. And I will say, shout out to Mike Ficara for being extremely patient with me, as I am definitely noob status when it comes to learning some of the mechanics of that. But yeah, definitely have been enjoying that.
No, yeah, it's a good release and a lot of fun. And look, you know, everybody out there, just find something that interests you. Like I'm a big proponent of having I don't even want to call it a hobby, but an escape, right? Whether that's books, media of some sort, shows, gaming, whatever that is, you know, find something that makes you happy. Yeah. That you can balance, you know, your own mental well-being with, and you know, don't worry about people judging you for it. Like I'm okay being the nerd that video games, streams, reads books, and all that stuff.
How's the Twitch channel going, by the way?
Good, really good. Yeah, nice. So that's good.
Yeah, Gamer Dad. What is it?
Indie Gaming Dad.
Gaming Dad. Check him out.
Yeah, don't do that.
Subscribe, follow it. I don't know if Twitch has anything else specific that like
no,
and
you're
subscribe.
Good.
Okay,
you're good.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Yep. I enjoy always getting to just peel back layers of the onion and kind of keep an eye on what you're seeing and what you're enjoying out of it. With that, thank you all for joining us. If you liked what you heard on today's podcast, make sure to like and subscribe. We always appreciate those 5 stars. Please and thank you. If you have ideas for future episodes that you'd like us to dive into, hit us up. We've got some amazing guests coming on as well that will, you know, we're really I think the amount of operator interviews that we've been blessed to be able to have been phenomenal so far this year, and we're really taking it to another level, which is just awesome. But with that, you can check out the weekly episodes that this comes out on, and make sure that you're sharing and telling a friend if it's something that you like, or if you just want to laugh at people being goofy on here. There's a little bit of that too.
Yeah, so we're shameless. We're okay with it.
I love it. Well, thank you guys. Have a great one. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll catch you on the next one, Troublemakers.